Hello and welcome back. As promised, in today's video, I'm going to break down the recent Baldur's Gate 3 PS5 reveal trailer, but I'm just going to wing it today. Very few edits and pretty much no scripting at all, which is quite rare for videos like this that I typically do. But I got to save some time this time, so this is how it's got to be. Hopefully it turns out pretty good. Let's check it out.
I'll tell you a story, true soul. My life was dismantled.
So this first scene right here is the stone effigy from the intro cinematic to the game. And we can even see the original intro cinematic right here. That's what it used to look like. I'm assuming that now it's going to look like this. New and improved, much more clear. Now the great thing about this updated version is it's much more clear. And I was able to pick out one thing that I didn't notice before, at least I don't think I noticed, and that is this weird tentacle creature to the Mind Flayer's left side right here. And I'm pretty sure that this creature is a Europhion. It's almost a spitting image of this picture right here. You can see the mouth, the tentacles, and if we go back to this, you got the mouth, the tentacles, and perhaps the eye. And Europhions are created by inserting a tadpole into the brain of a grotesque creature of the Underdark called a roper, and that will create a creature called a Europhion. So I think this is a little bit of foreshadowing as to an enemy that we're probably going to encounter at some point in the game, and that should be really, really cool. Now, Europhions are typically used as guards and sentries for illithid outposts in cities, so I wonder if this scene actually takes place in perhaps Arindal, the Mind Flayer capital. It would be really cool if we could go there. Now, if you're new around here, I am going to explain this entire stone effigy, even though I've talked about it in previous videos because we've already seen it, but I'll quickly go over it. So you have a Mind Flayer right here commanding a bunch of thralls, which are basically Mind Flayer slaves. Down here at the bottom, you have a group of Mind Flayers, and then to this Mind Flayer's right, the snail looking thing is actually a nautiloid ship, and nautiloid ships are what Mind Flayers use to traverse the planes of existence. And Baldur's Gate 3 actually starts us off on a nautiloid ship. The tutorial of the game takes place on a nautiloid ship. Now above this commanding Mind Flayer right here is this gigantic brain, which probably commands this Mind Flayer and also all of the other Mind Flayers. And this is called an elder brain. And elder brains are a collection of Mind Flayer brains, and they can see all of the Mind Flayers in their hive. They can see what they're doing. They can talk to them. They can issue out orders and all sorts of things. So if you meet a Mind Flayer, most of the time it's going to be probably under the control of an elder brain to some extent. I think when they go a certain distance away from the brain, it loses some of its power, but they're still kind of working for the elder brain. So really cool to see it in the stone effigy. I have a feeling that we're going to encounter an elder brain at some point in the game, and it's probably going to be a really, really crazy hard boss fight, but I can't wait for it. So yeah, that's basically it for the stone effigy. It was cool to kind of pick out that new creature right there. Well, it's not new, but you couldn't really see it as well before, the Europhion. Let's press on.
By peace.
It's a regular Mind Flayer right there.
And when I tried to buy...
Now this scene is interesting because I don't recognize it from early access. Now it clearly takes place on a nautiloid ship. You can see the pods lining the walls right here, and you can see the outside. It looks like the Mind Flayer ship is flying somewhere with intellect devourers running around, but I don't recognize this exact location on the tutorial nautiloid ship. So that makes me wonder if we're going to be going on or seeing another nautiloid ship at some point. Not entirely sure, but interesting nonetheless.
It back. It cost me everything.
Now, originally, from the previous trailer, a lot of us were thinking that this could be Moonrise Towers. There's a chance that it could be, but after this trailer, I think this is actually a fortress that Ketheric Thorm has command over, and we're going to see Ketheric Thorm in this next scene.
I must finish.
There he is, right there. Now, Ketheric Thorm is first mentioned to most of us from Helsin, who tells us of a man who led Dark Justiciars, which are like a cult of Shar, warriors of Shar, in the Underdark, but was ultimately defeated. And according to Helsin, he made it seem like Ketheric Thorm was actually dead, but now we know that he's clearly alive.
Finish what I started. Death.
This is a really, really interesting scene right here because to me it looks like some sort of sacrificial altar to the god of death, Myrkul. Now Myrkul is part of the Dead Three, Bane, Baal, and Myrkul, but this really looks like it's something for Myrkul himself, because you would probably sacrifice living creatures and living humanoids to Merkel, because then he would go on to resurrect them. Not really resurrect, he would go on to raise them as part of his undead army. So it looks like a sacrificial altar. The Mind Flayer pods just really make everything confusing in this game as to what's really going on in the plot. But I'm pretty sure that this is a sacrificial altar to Merkel, and we can actually look right here. You can see the symbol for Merkel is a triangle with skull. Triangle with skull, triangle with skull. And then this is a triangle with a skull. If I go back to Ketheric too, you'll notice that he has skulls pretty much all over his armor and everywhere in his fortress. This is starting to make you believe that Ketheric may be working for Merkel now, which is interesting because before he supposedly worked for Shar. So what happened here? Not really sure, but if his army of Dark Justiciars was defeated, perhaps he lost favor with Shar, and now for some reason he's working with Merkel. No, there's a lot to think about here.
What I started, death's design will be complete.
Discover Ketheric's secret.
So here we have Ketheric sitting on his throne, which is likely in that tower that we saw before. The coolest part of this scene is, of course, the creature standing next to him, or the character standing next to him, which is most likely a half orc. And we did see half orcs or orcs, probably half orcs, in one of the latest trailers before the PS5 trailer, which kind of gave a lot of us more assurance that we'll see half orcs, at least on the official launch of the game. And now we see it again. If there's this many half orcs running around as somewhat important NPC characters, I'm fairly certain that it will be a playable race in this game. So rest easy, all of you half orc lovers. I also feel the same way about Dragonborn. Now, Ketheric sitting on his throne here, you can see another symbol of Merkel right here. Now, some people might say that's a symbol of the Dead 3, but let me show you what the Dead 3 symbol actually looks like. We'll bring up the official announcement trailer. The Dead 3 symbol, but actually let me correct myself here, because this is actually a symbol of the Cult of the Absolute, which is kind of a symbol of the Dead 3 because it's a collective of Bane, Ball, and Merkel's iconography. And this symbol has a triangle, skull, and a hand. And the hand represents Bane, the skull is probably Ball, and the triangle and skull is Merkel. And this is kind of what their symbols all together look like. But you'll notice in this fortress of Ketheric Thorm, you don't see the handprint anywhere. So that makes me think that it really is just a symbol of Merkel, and it doesn't have anything to do with Ball or Bane in this particular case. And then we have like some priestess character standing right here and a few goblins probably working for Ketheric Thorm. This appears to be Ketheric Thorm's undead dog companion. Now, according to Early Access, Ketheric Thorm is at least partially responsible, if not solely responsible, for the creation of the Shadow Cursed Lands, which is an area that we have to traverse through to get to Moonrise Towers to get to the bottom of this tadpole problem that we have. So our main quest is leading us through the Shadow Cursed Lands. And in the Shadow Cursed Lands, we're told that there's really not much that's living. So it makes sense that his dog companion here would actually be a skeleton undead dog. And you can see once again more symbols that really kind of hint towards Merkel, more skulls, and Ketheric Thorm's armor is quite epic. Hopefully we can jack that from him.
Find out what it is that makes him invincible.
And now we get our first look at the PlayStation 5 interface, or maybe even perhaps the interface, just the controller interface if you're playing on PC. And you can see if you press L2, it probably switches your party member. Then you have like the camp button, which is left on the D-pad and the mini-map.
So we can strip him of his...
And then we have Gale, who appears to be running through probably an entrance of a temple of Lathander. And Lathander is the Morning Lord, the god of renewal and birth. And we did get to see some of this temple in a previous trailer. And you can see like the iconography, the half suns and all of that, which are the exact replica of the iconography that represents Lathander. I'm not sure if these wizard robes are new or not. You guys will probably let me know below in the comments, but I don't recall seeing those before. Pretty cool. I should also mention that Gale is level 8 in this scene. You can see Lae'zel has 76 hit points, and I don't think we've seen level 8 characters yet, at least not in gameplay form, so pretty cool to see that.
Advantage.
Now, this scene clearly takes place in Grimforge. Nothing really new here. The interesting thing is that this character is level 6, so that makes you wonder like what level you're going to be able to reach when you get to the Grimforge area, or what level will we be able to reach in Act 1? These are all questions to ponder. Now, this is the start of character creation on I'm assuming the PlayStation 5 or possibly PC with controller support. And some people were getting really excited thinking that body type represents like being able to make your character jacked or skinny or fat or something along those lines. But I'm pretty sure that it's not that. But before you think that that's not going to be a thing, in one of the recent trailers, we did see a player character that appeared to be quite jacked. So I think that is going to be a thing, but it's probably going to be under the appearance tab of character creation, not the create a hero tab. I think what body type represents here is 1 represents a more feminine type body, and 2 represents a masculine body, and then you can choose female or male. Now this is the Oathbreaker paladin that you meet if you break your oath as a paladin, and he gives you the option to become an Oathbreaker, or you can pay 2,000 gold to redeem your previous oath. Really cool character. And right here is in the goblin camp, and I don't think there's really anything special to talk about. Nope, I don't see anything. And Gale right there casting fireball on a group of creatures, rodent-looking creatures. I'm not really sure what they are. And they kind of look like rats, but like not really at the same time. I did try to do a little research on this, but I couldn't really figure it out. I was hoping that it was cranium rats, but you don't see the little brains on them. But the interesting thing is when he casts fireball, he then says, better eschew magic with these creatures. And the creatures all have this condition called unstable. I don't think we've seen that condition before. Really curious as to what it means and what's going on in this scene. Then we have a player character, Paladin, an Asmodeus Tiefling Paladin running through the Temple of Lathander that Gale was just in. And then this right here, some people were like flipping out about, but I think they just must not have gotten their tadpole powers before in the game, because it looks very, very similar to what you get. If you use your tadpole powers enough in early access, you'll go through a sequence of dreams, which will eventually reward you with special tadpole powers, which can be used once per short rest, and each class gets their own special tadpole power. And when you use your tadpole ability or power, this is kind of the visual animation representation that goes off when you click on the ability.
You're a pawn, a slave to forces you cannot comprehend.
That was my personal favorite reveal from the PS5 trailer, and this creature right here is a Displacer beast, which is a monstrosity, and the level 4 Druid actually transformed into a Displacer beast, which is hype times 100. Now, Druids traditionally cannot transform into monstrosity creatures, but I think this is probably a tadpole power. Perhaps this is going to replace the Druid's tadpole power, which currently will transform them into an Intellect Devourer, or maybe the Displacer beast is for the Moon Druid and the Intellect Devourer is for Circle of Land Druids. I'm not entirely sure.
Cannot comprehend.
But we know that we can now become a Displacer beast, and I can't wait. We actually get to see a Displacer beast attack here. And I'm sorry, when I hit my desk, it probably gives you guys a sound. I'll try to stop doing that. And then this ability right here says Repulsor on Elisande. And some of you might not be aware that you can actually get this ability. It's an action by talking to the NPCs in the Myconid colony called Blurg and Omelium. Blurg is a hobgoblin and Omelium is a mind flayer. If you do their quest and come back and work with Omelium and let him experiment on you, you can earn this ability called Repulsor, which is an AoE force damage action. I think it recharges on a short rest. I'd have to go back and look. And if enemies fail a saving throw, they'll also be knocked back.
Ketheric is a
Now this NPC is really interesting because I think this is the first time we've actually met a worshiper of Selûne, and Selûne is the Lady of Silver, the Moon Maiden, the goddess of the moon, and actually Shar's twin sister, but they're mortal enemies with each other. If you're fighting for the good, you're probably on Selûne's side. If you're fighting for evil, you're probably on Shar's side. So it's really cool to see a worshiper of Selûne in NPC character form. I'm assuming that she's probably fairly important. Really cool armor, really cool spear. Some people in my community were speculating that this is a Dragonborn right here. And that would be super cool. And I do think we're going to be able to play as Dragonborns on official release. But it kind of does look like a Dragonborn. But then again, this looks like hair, and that looks like an ear right there. It looks like a regular ear if you look a little bit closer.
is a fright.
That looks like a kind of a normal ear, and I don't think Dragonborns have ears like that. So I'm thinking it's not a Dragonborn, but we probably will see Dragonborn in the game.
Man, but you have something he doesn't. Allies worth having.
And then we have some co-op gameplay here, and it's really cool because you can see both mini maps. You can see Rosa over here, the Tiefling Barbarian, and then Tav, of course, Tav, a gnome bard, and you can see their actions and bonus actions, and their screen is kind of one right now until the Barbarian's turn is over. Together. And then it morphs back into like the split screen. It's kind of confusing me, but it's pretty cool. Now, let me just say right now, the fact that Larian's including split screen in this game is pretty incredible. Very, very few companies do it now. And from what I understand, it's a really, really big development hurdle to try to overcome if you want to make it work for your game. So Larian's going above and beyond with features like this, especially considering, like, you know, it's some people will use split screen, but they could have not done it and nobody would have really cared, but they decided to do it anyways. So that's really cool of Larian, and the split screen looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
We will strike down the absolute.
And right there, it's kind of an interesting shot. You get to see more of the controller interface. You have like a scroll wheel right here with weapon attacks, barbarian attacks. And I'm assuming that we'll be able to customize these wheels, and it looks like you can sift through them by pressing R1. I can't wait to give this a try and see how it feels. And that jumping attack right there is just a special jump attack that you get if you play as an Eagleheart Barbarian. It's nothing new. Then we have the Druid wild shaping into the Polar Bear, which is a special Moon Druid specific wild shape. And then Shadowheart, looking at the Githyanki artifact here, which is a really, really important item in this game. Very mysterious item, though. It looks like she's on the Nautiloid ship or in the crash site. I don't know if I recall seeing this scene before, but there's really nothing new to gather from it. And then we have Shadowheart charging at Ketheric Thorm right here.
Bow before me. Bow.
Ketheric Thorm ain't having none of that, and he deals 43 damage to 3 out of the 4 party members. And luckily, these characters succeeded on their saving throw. I wonder what would have happened if they didn't. I'm not entirely sure what necrotic spell he's casting here. I'm sure some of you D&D players would be able to figure it out. If you do, let me know below in the comments. But pretty powerful. Almost one-shot Shadow and Will. Lae'zel should have 70-something HP at this level, so she was fine. But really cool to see this spell. I'm sure Ketheric Thorm is going to be a really tough boss battle. Really wondering what level Act 1 will take us to. Is Ketheric Thorm a battle that we do at the end of Act 1, or is this into Act 2? I have no idea.
Bow before the absolute. Bow!
And then you got Ketheric Thorm saying bow before the absolute. So yes, he works for Merkel, but he also works for the absolute. And, you know, the Dead Three's relationship to the absolute and how all of that works is still kind of up in the air. All right, now let's talk about what Ketheric Thorm said during the trailer, because it was quite revealing about him as a character. I'll tell you a story, true soul. My life was dismantled piece by piece. When I tried to buy it back, it cost me everything. I must finish what I started. Death's design will be complete. Bow before me, bow, bow before the absolute, bow. And then in the J.K. Simmons trailer, which is a separate video, and I'll leave a link to that below, he reveals even more to us. I'll tell you a story, true soul, about a man who sold himself piece by piece. He had everything. A wonderful wife, a brilliant daughter. They live not far from here. His wife died too young. Grief tore through their home like a thief, snatching away the scent of her hair, the rustle of her skirts. But the man did not break. He could not break. His daughter needed him whole, after all. She grew up, grew strong, challenged him, filled his heart with such joy it supplanted all sorrow. When she was killed, the man, he tried to remain whole, but it wasn't possible. Do you understand? So this is really interesting because Ketheric clearly has a traumatic past, which has led him to the situation that he's in right now. When he tried to buy back his life, it cost him everything. So I'm wondering if Ketheric tried to make some deal with Shar or Merkel or both to help get his family back, but it ended up costing him much more than he could have ever imagined. Now, Ketheric saying Death's design will be complete indicates that whatever that actually means seems to be his goal at the moment, and perhaps if he's able to achieve completing Death's design, he may be able to reunite with his family in some way, shape, or form. Pretty interesting story to think about. Now, Jaheira in the trailer also says, discover Ketheric's secret. Find out what it is that makes him invincible so we can strip him of his advantage. So we probably can't just straight up kill Ketheric and help restore the cursed lands, which is something that we also learned about in these trailers. If we kill him, it will help heal these shadow cursed lands until we figure out what his secret is. Or perhaps maybe we'll also have the option to help out Ketheric. It's important to note that in that second story that he told in the J.K. Simmons trailer, it seems like he was opening up to the player character, which could be seen as a sign of a cordial relationship, perhaps. But if he's currently invincible, I'm not exactly sure how, but he did say my life was dismantled piece by piece, and that when his daughter was killed, he was not able to remain whole. So if I had to throw a wild guess out there, maybe just maybe Ketheric found a way to split his soul into several pieces, kind of like a Lord Voldemort in Harry Potter situation with the Horcruxes, and until we're able to destroy these pieces, he cannot be fully killed. That's just a guess, of course. Now, who Ketheric's daughter and his wife is, or maybe I should say were if they died, we can also do some wild speculating. I'm giving you a chance to leave the video right now. I'm sure if you've already watched this far, you probably don't care about speculations like this. I'd say it's possible that Shadowheart could be Ketheric's daughter. They both served Shar. Ketheric said that he lived in a village nearby, which could be the Blighted Village, the Moonhaven Village. Shadowheart seems to have some memories of living in the Moonhaven Blighted Village. Shadowheart also doesn't remember her past. Her memories have been wiped. So perhaps that leans into Ketheric thinking that his daughter is dead, but Shadow, in fact, did not die, but went through something quite traumatic with Shar. I don't know. Starting to get pretty crazy, and maybe none of that is true. Thank you so much for watching, and if I missed anything, please comment down below. With unscripted content, I tend to miss a lot of things or say things kind of wrong, but it is what it is. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Much more Baldur's Gate content to come, and I'll catch you on the next one.